The night sky pressed low over the highway, swollen with rain that blurred the headlights of passing cars. Water slicked the asphalt until it gleamed like fractured glass. James gripped the wheel tighter, fatigue creeping into his bones after more than 100 kilometers of work, travel, and worry. Yet exhaustion could not compete with the relentless pull inside his chest. He had been away too long. Every mile carried him closer to the small house where Diep and little Nhi waited, the two souls who had become his entire world. When James finally stepped through the doorway, the fatigue of distance dissolved in an instant. Warmth met him first, the scent of rice steaming in the pot, the gentle aroma of broth simmering on the stove. The little house glowed with yellow lamplight, soft and welcoming against the storm outside. On the wooden table lay scattered crayons, small drawings unfinished. Behind them, Nhi sat cross-legged, her tiny hands still busy shading the wings of a butterfly. Diep looked up from the kitchen, her face framed by strands of hair loosened from a day's work. For James, the sight hit with a familiar ache, a tenderness sharpened by longing. He dropped his bag, crouched low, and whispered through the exhaustion, "Nhi." The little girl's eyes lit instantly. She ran to him, arms wide, her laughter cutting through the heaviness of the night. James lifted her, kissing her cheeks again and again, laughter breaking from him like a man starved of joy. For that brief moment, nothing else existed, not contracts, not negotiations, not even the shadows of doubt he carried. Here, in this fragile home with Diep and Nhi, he was where he belonged. Dinner was simple, vegetables, rice, and soup. But to James, it tasted richer than any meal in the city. They prayed together. They laughed when Nhi proudly showed off her 2 Good Student awards. Diep's smile was soft, steady, but James saw it. A flicker behind her eyes, a shadow she tried to hide. When the plates were cleared, she finally spoke. Her voice trembled, though she tried to keep it calm. "James, a woman came yesterday. She said she is Nhi's grandmother. She wants to take her away." The words fell between them like stones. James froze, his hand tightening around the table's edge. He turned to Nhi, who sat oblivious, playing with grapes from a small bowl. Could someone truly come to tear her away? James reached across the table, clasping Diep's hand. His voice was steady, though his chest burned with anger. "Listen to me. No one will hurt Nhi. Not while I'm here. Tomorrow I'll find out the truth. If she is family, we'll know. But if this is a trick, I'll stop it. Outside, the storm rumbled, thunder rolling through the valley. Inside, James tightened his grip on Diep's hand, resting his other gently on Nyi's shoulder. Something was stirring in the shadows, something that threatened not only their fragile peace but the very bond they had built. Morning suspicion. The storm broke at dawn, leaving the streets washed clean. The air smelled of wet leaves and earth. NHI hummed as she colored at the table, her voice sweet, untouched by the fear her guardians carried. Diep moved quietly in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, her hands steady though her heart was not. James stood at the window, coffee cooling untouched. The words from last night echoed like a bell. I am Nyi's grandmother. She must return to her family. Too precise. Too sudden. Why now? Why after so many months of silence? By mid-morning, James left. At the district office, he requested records. A clerk produced a thin file, sealed in red. The woman's name was Lan. The documents said she had a son who had died years ago, leaving behind a daughter, NHI. On paper, it all aligned. Too neatly, too perfectly. James closed the file. If this was true, why had Lan remained silent through the weeks when NHI wandered lost, when no one came for her? Why appear only now, when the girl had found safety and love? When James returned home, Diep met him at the porch, her eyes searching his. What did you find? She asked. James shook his head. The papers match, but it feels staged. Someone may have planted this. Her hands trembled against her dress. What if it's real, James? What if she truly belongs to her? James lowered his voice, glancing toward the house where NHI was singing softly. Then we face it. But if it's a lie, then this is more than family. This is someone targeting us. The woman at the cafe. They agreed to meet her in town, at a small cafe on the edge of the market. The woman, Lan, sat by the window, posture rigid, gray hair tied neatly. Her tea had gone cold, but her eyes were sharp, unsettlingly steady. Mr. James, she greeted politely, her gaze flicking over Diep and NHI. And this must be the child. NHI clung to Diep's arm. James pulled out a chair, movements deliberate. You claim to be her grandmother. Prove it. Lan slid a folder across the table. Inside, hospital records, birth certificates, even a faded photograph of a young man cradling a newborn. It looked real, too real. Diep's voice broke the silence. If you are truly family, why now? Why wait so long? Lan smiled faintly. Circumstances, work, life doesn't always allow us to be where we want. But blood calls to blood. A child must return to her roots. NHI pressed closer to Diep, shaking her head. James leaned forward, voice low. Roots are not just blood. They are love. They are care. Where were you when she needed that? For a second, Lan's eyes flashed. Then she looked away. I am here now. James felt the chill rise inside him. Her story was polished, rehearsed. Too neat. And outside the cafe, he caught sight of a man watching from the crowd. When James turned, the figure vanished. Whispers of the past. That night, James drove out alone to the edge of the city. In a dim warehouse, he met an old contact. The man slid an envelope across the table. You asked about Lan, he said. She isn't here for the child. She has ties to John. James's chest tightened. John, a former ally turned bitter rival. A man whose betrayal had once sabotaged his business, nearly destroying everything. Their families had feuded for generations over land, inheritance, and pride. Now, the truth came into focus. Lan was not acting as a grandmother reclaiming a child. She was working with John. And NHI was the pawn. James returned past midnight. Too Diep was waiting on the porch, shawl around her shoulders. Where were you? She whispered. James took her hands. I know the truth. She's not here for NHI. She's working with John. Her breath caught. What do we do? He pulled her close. We protect her. Whatever it takes. The attack. Morning came deceptively calm. The sky brightened into a pale gold, birdsong filling the air. But James had already packed a suitcase. Today, he would move Too Diep and NHI somewhere safe. As they stepped toward the car, the street fell eerily quiet. Then, screeching tires shattered the stillness. A van stopped at the corner. Two masked men leapt out. Run. James roared. One lunged at Too Diep, the other seized Nye's arm. She screamed, clinging desperately. Too Diep fought with everything she had, refusing to let go. James's blood surged with fury. He slammed into the man, fists flying, the taste of blood sharp in his mouth. The second man charged again, but Too Diep, trembling, grabbed a wooden stick from the yard and struck with all her strength. The crack echoed. James pinned the other attacker to the ground, his knee pressing into the man's chest. Who sent you? He snarled. The man spat blood, smiling cruelly. You already know. John. Sirens wailed in the distance. The attackers panicked, scrambling back into the van. Tires screeched, smoke rose, and in seconds they were gone. The yard fell silent except for Nye's sobs. Too Deep clutched her, tears streaming, whispering James's name. James wrapped them both in his arms, his chest heaving with rage. This was no longer a quiet game of deception. John had made his move. And James knew. The time for caution had ended. Lessons in the storm. The story of James, Too Deep, and NHI is more than a family's struggle. It is a reminder that love and loyalty are not abstract ideals, they are choices, sharpened in moments of fear. James's defiance teaches us that true strength lies not in wealth or bloodlines but in protection, standing firm when darkness threatens those you love. Too Deep shows that motherhood is not defined by birth certificates but by sleepless nights, whispered stories, and hands that refuse to let go. And NHI, innocent, brave, becomes the living proof that the bonds of care are stronger than any paper, stronger even than blood. This is a story of war between shadows and light, ambition and love. And above all, it is the story of how far we are willing to go to protect the family we choose.